Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, here in Santa Clara, California. We're 7th Cloud Expo. Here we are, Cloud Expo Silicon Valley, day 3, the afternoon thereof. Still a day to go, remember, so just draw deep breaths. We're a little bit past halfway. Cathy Minter is up next. Remember, the theme of this day was business, was enterprise. What drives that? Well, what else but value? So a lot of the threads that Cathy's going to talk about now are things that we really want you to take away from Cloud Expo, this 7th Cloud Expo. Cathy Minter, please, from Cordys, take it away.
Jeremy, am I hooked up? Thanks, everybody. It's great to be here tonight at the Cloud Expo. As Jeremy said, my topic of my discussion tonight is the business value, which is something that's very near and dear to me in my career, having come from 20 years as technology, always on the business side. My current role is I run Cordys for the Americas, and in my daily interactions with my customers, it's always about, there's a lot of new technologies that are emerging over the years I've been in business, and as you come, kind of face-to-face with customers in a buying cycle, it always comes down to, this is really cool stuff, but what actually is this going to do to help my business? And that's really the topic of what I want to talk about today, is how can we leverage all the great technologies that we're seeing as we walk through the expo floor? How can that be taken to the next level and really maximize the amount of business value that we can bring to enterprises? So as I was preparing for this presentation, I actually kind of thought, well, the title of my presentation is Business Value of the Cloud, but what does value actually mean? And I decided I was going to go check the definition of value, because value to me is one of those words in business that is very overused. It kind of pops up a value prop, value of this, value of that, but what is value? And I was interested, there was actually 5 definitions of value in the businessdictionary.com. I pulled 3 in today, which I think was relevant to this discussion. Obviously, the first, I was an economics major, so going back to the typical price times quantity equals value. But really, there's 2 areas I want to talk about today. If you think about economic value, that's the actual worth of something on the market. An example of this is you're going to sell your car, and you go to the Blue Book, and you determine what the value of that car is. And to me, that's what economic value is actually what is that good or service worth when it's sold on the market. Business value is different because business value actually doesn't have a distinct quantity associated with it. It's really the perception of how much that's worth in the market. And that really has to do with what your customers want to pay for it, what they think that actually could be driven in the market. And so when we talk about the cloud and how to derive business value, that's something I'm going to try to discuss and explore today at a high level. Obviously, we don't have that much time to dive into all of the details, but really just touch on the areas I think that we can derive business value from the cloud. So one of the themes that I've been thinking about is how is the consumer cloud environment, which to me is really where the cloud, a lot of the emerging cloud technologies have been formed and the business coming together. So if you just look at the consumer cloud, obviously these are household names, everybody is using this. It was amazing, Facebook, again, like the elections that happened last night, I don't know if anyone was following it, but Facebook actually had an app that was registering every individual on Facebook when they voted and where they voted. And that was automatically updated. And I thought, my God, that's amazing, because as this goes forward, can you imagine how much power Facebook is going to yield in the political space, political and economic space? Because I would guess that Facebook had the results of the voting turnout quicker than the actual government or any of the voting agencies. So you can see how this is really going to drive just amazing transformation in the future. As well as, I have a 10-year-old son. He plays video games. The whole, idea now of sharing these games across borders and boundaries. And obviously mobile we'll talk about a little bit more later, but that is just obviously a huge game changer in terms of emerging technology and how that's going to be really disintermediating a lot of the work that we do on PCs. You can go to the business cloud is kind of the other area, and that's maybe not as well used in every day, but if you think about coming into work and what you do every day at your job, we're all doing email, obviously, chat. There's SaaS-based applications like Salesforce.com that, to me, are really becoming the de facto standard. Having come from an ERP background with Oracle and SAP, CRM was obviously a big, used to be a huge decision-making process, long sales cycles, very expensive projects. Salesforce has really changed the whole nature of the game with CRM, with how they've approached the market. So it's really incredible. And now it's really where you would go first or look first really to provide a CRM application. So that's really changed the game there, as well as just how you're working with the mobile applications and delivering mobile applications on your device. So all of these things are contained currently in the business cloud environment, as I like to call it. Here are just some stats, kind of what I was saying before about Facebook. It's just incredible, obviously, the amount of volume that goes through this. I mean, YouTube, I think 14 billion videos have been viewed on YouTube. It's amazing in terms of LinkedIn. In their expansion, I would say now in the recruiting of employees and talent management, LinkedIn is almost a de facto as well in terms of how people are finding and getting talent, which used to be a place to kind of share resumes really for people at times that weren't employed. Now it's really about how you communicate with your business associates across boundaries. And obviously Twitter and that technology is going to become just instrumental in terms of communications in the consumer sector as well as the business sector. So that's kind of all setting up. You've got the consumer cloud applications and services. You have the business cloud services. Obviously, this is all driving to my discussion today, which is really where are you going to get the value out of these things. And if I think about this show that we're at today and a lot of where the cloud is going, and I spoke to Jeremy about this before, it's like, well, what's the next generation of this conference? Because a lot of this really was driving adoption to the cloud, but as you walk around, most companies are comfortable now or moving towards the fact that, hey, I'm okay moving my data into the cloud. So if you look at the bottom part of this presentation, that's kind of where I go with the economic value. It's about virtualization, outsourcing, providing additional storage, ways to become more efficient, take the cost out of the business, and save money. So that's sort of step one, and to me, that's the economic value of the cloud. The second phase is really strategic business value. How am I going to leverage connecting? Now that the data is in the cloud, what do you do with it to get business value? How do you connect the different sources of data, whether that's within your premise or in the cloud, creating either hybrid private cloud environments or even leveraging just things completely in the cloud to do business processes that actually help your business and give people tools to do what they need to do on a daily basis to get their job done. And if you look at some of the things at the top in terms of collaboration, how people are communicating with each other, creating composite applications, mashup applications that are done on demand, which we call at Cordys situational applications, which are things you can build very quickly. That's all things that I think build customer loyalty, increases how you interact with your customers and suppliers, as well as build a competitive advantage for your business and get to market faster. And I'm going to talk about some specific case studies where this applies a little bit later in my presentation. There is a lot of buzz right now, and Cordys is rooted in a lot of strong BPM capabilities, so this is also something that we're interested in, but there is a very big wave to social BPM, and if you Google it, there's tons of articles and blogs on this topic. I think it's very interesting. When you think about social BPM, it's definitely not something that you can go out and purchase. In terms of, hey, I'm going to go buy. It's one of those things. I'm not going to go buy a cloud application. I always laugh because I was at the Javits Center for the last Cloud Expo, and this guy comes up to our booth. He's like completely frantic. He had come down from Wall Street, and he got into the conference somehow, and he said, we're like, what are you here for? He goes, well, my boss read an article in the Wall Street Journal this morning, and it was about cloud computing. So I'm here to figure out where can I buy one of these clouds. We're like, buddy, you got to stop at like every single booth here to put that together. So and that's really, you don't buy a cloud. It's a set of enabling technologies that help you do more. And that's really what social BPM is as well. It's really a technique. It's a method of applying social networking technologies to a business environment. And again, that will be talked about in the case study, but it's really a whole different way of interacting as an employee in your business on a daily basis. As I said, the results of social BPM in this sense can be really the ability to connect all your organizations in ways that you could never do before. And there's some product development and time to market examples that I'll talk about. It also provides the communications between your partners, your customers, your employees, and your suppliers. And that as well increases just your knowledge of what's happening in your business, and obviously extend that to the ecosystem. So what are the key benefits of what I say the social software? And we like to talk about business processes and business models within that and creating that. But really, as I said before, the ability to integrate customers. We were actually thinking about, if you were in terms of customer complaints or dispute management, ability for your people to blog internally within an organization around that. That's a really important way to communicate and understand customer issues ahead of time. This also is very true because when you talk about the patterns now between your customers and your enterprise, it's really bi-directional at this point. It's not, you're not communicating. It's happening real time with chat and other things that are available, as well as speeding up decisions. The one thing I love about the social software as it applies to your company is the concept of equality. So as the cloud is really the great equalizer in the world because it gives the power to the individual, to the employee, to perform tasks, get information that they couldn't do before. And I think that obviously is a huge evolutionary shift in how businesses are going to have to work and conduct themselves. So what are the challenges? So we've talked about, consumer and business and bringing those together, the benefits of applying social BPM to your business environment. But what would be the challenge to kind of unlock some of that, to be able to use that technology actually in an enterprise? It sounds great. It sounds, hey, this is awesome. I'm going to let my employees, create a whole collaboration network and we'll connect to this supplier and that customer. But there's a lot of concerns that would take place in terms of rolling that out. One of the things is actually where you're trying to simplify things, you'd actually add complexity to the situation. So if you think about multiple cloud services now coming into play, and within your enterprise, now you've got your employees going up to Facebook, going up to Google, heading to Salesforce.com, interacting with your SAP or your ERP systems. Actually, that contains a whole spaghetti now of connections within your company's infrastructure that actually makes it more complex, not less complex. Also, the lack of governance. I mean, I can imagine trying to keep control of the corporate systems as it is when you start allowing, through mobile devices and BlackBerries and iPhones and all the apps that take place, governance is a huge concern, which really plays into the next bullet, which is the security concerns that would take place if you're a bank or any kind of institution that has financial data, or any business for that matter, confidential data, as well as identity management. Those things are prevalent in the consumer market today. It's very concerning if that would play its way into the enterprise, and how do you control that? So you kind of have to weigh the balances of the productivity enhancements that you're going to get from this technology with the concerns on how this could impact negatively your business. And the last one is really the legacy system. So a household, your house, doesn't have a ton of legacy systems laying around, nor do in terms of your friends and family. But when you're talking about a business applying social technology to your business, you're going to have to deal with systems that are 30 years old, systems that just are very key to your business that can't be replaced. So you're really going to have to figure out, between these multiple generations of applications and standards, the different architectures that are there, your data models, they all need to communicate with each other. And that, I think, is another big challenge in terms of applying this technology in a business environment. So where is this headed? What we like to call it, at least at Cordys, is an enterprise cloud. And if you look at this picture, and what is this picture actually saying? What we're saying is at the top, you see the cloud. That's all the external sort of consumer cloud applications and services that I was describing earlier. Those obviously are of huge help to the business, and it has to interact with your enterprise systems, which are depicted at the bottom, whether that's Microsoft. You've got lots of unstructured data within spreadsheets, as well as Oracle and SAP systems. They need to be connected. And the two enabling technologies that are going to be critical to making this happen is mobile, obviously, the mobile web. That statistic is pretty interesting and shocking to me, actually, that the adoption of an internet connection is happening today 8 times faster than on a PC. So if that rate continues, really the PC usage within an employee is going to be transferring mostly over to a mobile device or a smartphone. So everyone can see that, but I think that's a pretty amazing statistic in terms of the rate of that happening even today, as well as the fact that mobile is pervasive. You never lose your mobile connection, except maybe sometimes up in a plane, which is always a relief for me when I can get a few hours without any connections. I'm hoping that Continental Airlines doesn't put the web on the planes yet. But pervasive connectivity, you're always connected. It's much easier to connect. And if you look at the generation coming up below us, they are very comfortable. They don't need a PC. So really everything's going to be now delivered through a mobile device. So in order of making that happen within an enterprise, and if you think of the activities that those circles represent within that building, whether that's customer service, a call center agent, someone in the manufacturing or shop floor, plant, anything that's mobile or field service-based, fleet management-based, as well as just your everyday back office, all of that is going to be delivered through smartphones or mobile devices in the future. The other part that's going to be critical is the workflow and cloud integration and orchestration. So all of this can't happen if they didn't have workflow and the cloud orchestration. Those two, the bubble on the top, the cloud, and the bottom would never be able to connect in any meaningful way. So to be able to initiate meaningful business processes within this environment is going to drive the business value. Otherwise, you've got your cloud data center, your data there. It's saving you money. It's a good move. You don't have things on site. You have less people working on it. But what is it doing for you? How is that data then connecting? How can you make that data work for you, make sure that you're leveraging it and not just housing it in a place that's saving you money but not really? You're losing touch with it, especially data that has to do with your customers or your product. Then you become detached from what is going to make your business successful and give you a competitive advantage. So you have to think about, how am I going to connect? How am I going to build processes in the cloud as the next phase to make sure that I'm running my business in the cloud? So it's not just a place to save money and outsource. I'm going to run my business in the cloud in the future, and this is going to be really critical to it. And those are really the two very important enabling technologies to make this happen. So where do we find the value? So I wanted to give, so this is like a lot of talk about, okay, the business processes and the mobile, but give me some examples, Cathy, of how this actually could happen in real life so I could think about it in terms of my business. So one of the things I think is the collaboration for product development. And the example I'd like to give here is a pharmaceutical company developing a new drug. If you think about the process that takes, how long that takes to do that, and the different steps in the process, you could see how leveraging some of the social technologies would be very effective. The example was, I'm familiar with some of these in my career, but the guys in the pharmaceutical companies, they write everything down still on lab notes. So they're in their research and development, they're writing. It's never automated. Their brains, they're brilliant individuals, but they're still not going to put it into a computer. So how do you capture pictorial or capture a scanned image of those notes? and then collaborate it with the research facility or university in China or Asia that's also collaborating on content to get the drug to market. And then you have the entire regulatory process here in the U.S. that can take forever to get through the FDA, which requires a lot of steps in the process and has to be very well timed and orchestrated to make that happen well. Today, that process takes quite a long time, years, to get a drug to market. And part of that, obviously, is the issue with the government, how long that takes, but the other is just the pure lack of automation in handling step by step in the very tight approval process that's required in any kind of healthcare or pharmaceutical. So you could think of a lot of other areas around collaboration that would apply, but that would just be an example of using, a Facebook-like application with, let's say, Twitter-type technology to say, once the lab note is updated into that section, a tweet or a business tweet goes to that next person who may be in Europe to tell them that person has completed that task, it's been uploaded into this section, I'm now going to go in and do my part and then initiate a workflow that will route that document to the guy in China who's working at the university. Again, that could all be done through, and then there's a, interview that takes place, or there's some explanation that's required in that step, and a YouTube-type video is then posted in that same section collaborative workspace, which allows the customer to, or allows that organization to then, understand that a little better. So you can see how, bringing this together, just as you would in a Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter application, is really helping for businesses to be more productive. The second thing is speeding a product launch. In Asia today, people buy life insurance automatically without ever having to interact with an agent who comes. Life insurance is a very personal process, so usually you'll have an agent that comes out and sits at your home, and a lot of times giving a lot of private information. There's now the ability to go in and from end to end subscribe and receive life insurance completely in an online collaborative way, and that includes the appointments with the medical doctors, all of the testing that needs to take place, as well as the pricing of the policy information, which is contained in the legacy systems of the insurance company, can now be brought forward and configured through a product configurator in an online environment through this collaboration, and the speeding time to market and the cost for that insurance company now that I've been working with, our company's been working with, it reduced that time to market. It's incredible by years in terms of how long it would take to develop all these new products to market. Also around flow and speeding decision making, I always think about the financial services industry and mergers and acquisitions, working with an investment bank. 2 large investment banks have merged together. Their CFO, it takes 3.5 weeks to even get the first amount of data after they close their book in a quarter. It's an incredible amount of time. They have 150 business analysts with spreadsheets, with information. They can't get it in time to get any kind of visibility, and you'd think, my God, this is Wall Street, and they should be doing this more effectively. But it's amazing that those problems still exist, and you can imagine getting access and integration from those spreadsheets into a collaborative environment to get visibility across the multiple mergers and acquisitions can absolutely allow that to close your closing time and give that CFO the information he needs quickly to make informed decisions about where the business is going. Cost reductions, there's not a million, but there's a lot of examples of how the cloud can help from a cost reduction perspective. One thing I think about just in terms of enterprises is anyone has worked in an enterprise that has Lotus Notes. There's millions of Lotus Notes users still out there. What the cloud and what we're talking about today can enable you to do is move your calendar and your email up to the cloud through something like a Google Apps, and then build situational applications to connect the rest of the business applications to run your business effectively in the cloud. And why is that a cost reduction? Is that Lotus Notes requires multiple servers and operations centers to run that business. So there's a lot of costs involved in just keeping the lights on, as well as just, in terms of communicating externally with Lotus Notes, there's often a lot of, manual effort that has to go to route those things around. So that's another example of just cost reductions. And then any kind of time to market, I think advance, as well as reducing the amount of people or manual time that's required always reduces your time to market. So that's really kind of what I wanted to express around, okay, what's kind of happening? We're here at the Cloud Expo. We've made the move to the cloud, and how can we now work to get to the next level, leveraging a lot of these new technologies from a business perspective, because at the end of the day, we want to be running our business effectively. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Cathy. Let's see if there's any questions, because we have a little time. I'm always impressed at a question that comes this late in the day. So who is going to impress us? Let's have a look here. Come along. Business value of the cloud? And no, not a question. It's inconceivable. Here we are. Have at it, sir.
Brave soul.
You made a valid point that cloud is an equalizer. Okay, isn't it very scary that a startup company gets the same IT infrastructure as any Fortune 500 and can compete in that direction? So what do you think? What will happen in the next 3 to 5 years if cloud gives the same competitive edge to a startup company and a Fortune 500 company?
Very scary, very delicious.
Scary, I guess, is what I would... it plays into the governance, obviously, discussion that I had, but I really believe it'll foster more innovation and the ability for small and medium-sized businesses to prosper. It really allows a lower-cost entry point to be competitive, and I think overall it'll improve the customer service that's being provided, because it's going to hold the big guys accountable for providing good customer service.
Make sense? Scary, I like that. Another question, come on, right over there. Here we come. No more words like scary. It's supposed to be upbeat. It's Cloud Expo.
Hi. When you talk about collaboration and data exchange, do you see a role for data exchange standards that many industry verticals have developed? Do you see a place for somebody to implement those standards instead of just providing a reference architecture, actually providing a standard reference implementation of those standards in the cloud?
I mean, standards are always a big topic when it comes to any kind of cloud or internet-based services. So I think, would there be one person developing a standard? I think it's going to be more of a community-based standards process as it is today with any kind of standards body. I think it would be important, but I think it needs to be an open type discussion and community. I don't think it would be successful just with to have a single company necessarily provide a standard. I think they could lead an effort or a conversation and community-based approach.
You spoke about security as being important. Could you elaborate a little bit more on what you see happening in terms of security in the cloud?
Sure. In my role, I'm not a security expert in terms of the technology, but what I can tell you is that every customer that I talk to, is concerned about how introducing new technologies like is available in the cloud, it could impact the security within their four walls of their business. And so I think that there's going to be very important players that emerge that provide this governance. And, just like when you were purchasing on the internet credit cards back, 15 years or 10 years ago when you were first doing a lot of online shopping, that everybody was nervous about that. It was a very new thing. Where's my credit card going? When I put it into this. So I think almost the same evolution is going to happen with here. I think we'll get there, but I think there's going to be some growing pains, and some companies will get out a little ahead of it, and there will be an opportunity for companies, either on the consulting side or that provide this type of guidance, to prosper very well, because the benefits of moving to the cloud is going to outweigh the security. They're going to cross the line where you can't not do it because it's so beneficial to your business. I think a lot of players are going to emerge, and it's a real business opportunity for companies that play in that space.
Thank you.
Okay, then let's say thank you to Cathy. We're going to technical sessions next. Another 8 tracks to choose from. Boot camp is still running, up the escalators. Thanks again, Cathy. And if they're not convinced now, they'll just have to come back next year.